This is the Bear Country Outdoors Barely a Podcast. I'm your host, Doug Joyce, and with me is James Forsland and Chris Cantrell. Thanks for joining.
Ready.
Yep. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another Barely a Podcast. We're doing things a little bit different today. We do not have Doug Joyce with us, so I will be guiding us through this random podcast. We have a very, very special guest today. He is a worldwide traveler. He's been worldwide traveling for the last month, from what I hear.
Yeah, I've been busy. Yeah, thanks, James.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say worldwide. I'd say western-wide, maybe.
Yeah, well, he's been at just about every show in the western states, I can tell you that. Mr. Randy Newberg, we're excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for agreeing.
Yeah, sitting here at the Leupold booth. That's where you can find me. Any show I'm at, come to Leupold booth and ask for me, and they might say, well, we fired him this morning. We told him to come back, reapply for his job this afternoon.
I don't think so. And then we also have another special guest, Mr. Matthew Hayes, who is our guy at Leupold that we deal with. And he's going to tell us a little bit about some of the new products that they have, new Generation 2 scope series that is out now. What do we have on the table here, Matt?
That is the VX6HD Gen 2. That's the 3-18 by 44. So some pretty cool new features. I think the biggest complaint on every scope is I have to carry a stupid Allen wrench with me.
Tiny Allen wrenches.
Everybody always loses it or doesn't bring it to the range.
Yep.
So now toolless dials, so you just pop them off, real simple, nice and easy.
Mm-hmm.
That is a game changer.
See, so easy, even an accountant can
A retired accountant.
I mean, I know that it's frustrating when you're at the range and you're trying to put those things in and mess with stuff. Like, that makes it 100 times easier.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it, too, is a lot of people hunt different areas, so now you get 2 free custom dials with it, with every purchase of the scope. So you can make one for your home area and then make one for the mountain range that you go usually hunt at, too. So you have 2 different dials for your loads or whatever you want.
I think that's a big deal. So we just finished a build series. Mm-hmm. Is it out yet? I don't think
it'll be out probably in the next week or so.
So
it'll be out before this airs.
Yes.
Probably.
Yes.
We got one more in the pipe ahead.
So it was a 3-parter in the end. I'm going through because obviously we all ran the VX6 HD, the Gen 1s, and it's not a complaint. It's just I'm probably like you guys. Like, I hunt a bunch of different areas, so I have like 50 different dope sheets, and half the time I just make a new dope sheet before I go to an area. But it would be nice, for those. Not that you're going to have super quick shots at long range, but sometimes it's like, oh, there's something at 460 and I don't want to hold. And if you had that dial, that custom dial, and not in minutes, but in your yardage, and you could just rip it to 420 and take a shot.
Just smack them, yeah.
Yeah.
And we do. Randy's been out to the range too, and we do a lot of training out there with the CDS with people, and we throw them together really quick. Like, I'll just run them through a chrono and then build dials, and we get them done usually the day before we go out there.
Right.
And they work well. Like, they hammer them out to 1,300 yards all the yards. So
really?
Yeah. As long as you the more accurate you are with the ballistic information, like we all know, the more accurate the dial is going to be. But because some people run off the box, and we all know box ammo velocity is not great.
No, that's garbage.
So, yeah. But it makes it easy. It's kind of the easy button for most people.
Right.
And then the other features we have. A lot of people didn't really like the old throw lever a lot, so we have the new style like the Mark V. So it's just built into it, screwed in. And if you don't like a throw lever, we can always just send you a plug and you can delete it. But same great scope. I think it's the best hunting scope on the market. Mm-hmm. Best glass, I think, at that price point too. They're all illuminated in the VX6, and a lot of things people don't know is it has a self-leveling feature in it. So if you're slightly canted when you're going to go take your shot, the reticle will flash at you and then tell you to get level, basically. And then once you get level, it'll stop flashing.
And I know that you're a big long-range guy, right?
Yeah.
You do a bit of a shoot once in a while.
Just a couple.
Some PRS or something along those lines?
PRS NRL, yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. Why is that important?
If you're not level when you're shooting, if you're dialing distance, instead of dialing straight, you're basically dialing to the left or to the right. So you'll throw shots left and right, and the further out you get, the more exaggerated that is. So you can easily miss a deer, 600-700 yards if you're not level.
That's good to know.
That is good to know.
So now when you mount that scope, as long as you have your action in your rifle perfectly level and perpendicular, should be no reason why you should have that scope mounted any canted way, because it's going to flash at you and say, hey, idiot, you're mounting this canted.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's super easy. And the Gen 1 had that too. And a lot of people just didn't realize it. So I think it's a neat feature, especially if you don't want to run levels on your rifles. I like to also run a level on my rifle just to be double sure.
Right.
But, it's a pretty good thing, and it's accurate within 1 degree. So it's pretty good.
Wow.
That's super good.
No.
I don't ever think when I'm shooting at an animal, I almost never take time to even think about that. I'm just like, oh, it's there. It's going to get away. Let's rip around.
But if the reticle's flashing at you.
But if the
you have no
reticle's
choice.
flashing at me, I'd definitely think about it a little bit more.
To be fair, James is the cowboy of bear country, and he's shot everything at like 95 yards. And where I'm like, oh, there's a bear at 1350. And James like, let's get closer, and I'm like setting up for the shot. He's like, no.
I'm like, what are you doing? We got to close this gap a half a mile.
I like reaching out and touching things a little bit further away. It's just more fun.
Yeah.
But, other than that, we got 5. We redesigned the entire main tube. The Mark IV actually taught us a lot about scopes, even though we've been doing this for over 100 years.
Right.
It taught us a lot, and we were able to move the improvements on that into this too. So we redesigned the main tube of it, and it got us about 5% more adjustment range out of it.
Really?
Compared to the old gen, which most people that won't matter too much. But if you're using an older rifle where maybe the tolerances aren't as great and you have to use a ton of adjustment to get zeroed,
right,
it allows you to at least have a little bit more room and wiggle room in that.
I think going back to your new dial system. So I have a little gun shop, right?
Just a little one.
A little gun shop. And so I have to go to the range a bunch for customer guns. So I'm sure you guys know, you go to the range, you shoot your gun, you have a zero lock turret, and you have to go the other way. Like, you're not going in the up position, but you need to go down. Well, you can only go a minute or two the other way past your zero lock before it stops, right? So then you have to take your turret off and adjust that top part. Well, I have, let's say I have a dozen customer guns. Well, I'm going to have VX5s, and I'm going to have VX6s, and then I'm going to have some Mark 5s, because I love me a Mark 5, right? And then I take the Allen wrench for the VX5, oh, perfect, and the VX6, perfect, and I put it in the Mark 5, and it's a different size hole. And now I have to dig through my giant, and I'm super organized, by the way, so I'm digging through all this crap in this box trying to find this other tiny, tiny Allen wrench to take that off. So I am ecstatic that this is like a toolless feature.
Oh, I think we may have upset some people at SHOT Show this year, because there may have been some other companies that released new dials that were tool dials.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty funny, but I think it's going to be kind of the future of dials and how they are, and hopefully eventually everything's toolless.
Honestly, that's going over into the firearms industry in general. I know that you were just talking about how you put your barrels on and off, and I'm not going to mention that because I'll get a million hate things about how dumb I am on the internet. But we're running the American Rifle Co-Action, so that's a Western Washington-based company out of Mukilteo, and their new coup de grace, the bolt disassembly is completely toolless.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
Yeah, even Seekins is going that route with their new rifle too.
Really?
So a lot of people, the whole industry is going like a toolless route,
right?
Which makes sense, because I don't know about you, but how I used to take off my bolt was put it on my shoelace.
100%, yeah. Pull it and hope. Oh, yeah.
So now we don't have to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that coup de grace action's pretty money.
Yeah, it's I had to beat Ted to death to make a lightweight version. So, have you met Ted?
I have not met him yet.
So Ted is he looks exactly like he'll never listen to this, so I can say this. He looks like Weird Al Yankovic. Like
he totally does.
Oh, he's the guy that does their videos too, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's a fantastic guy. He's very tough to talk to because I'm so much dumber than he is that I'm trying to he's doing the Matrix thing on his computer and blowing the action up, and I'm like, no, cut it out here and cut it out here and take this away there. And I'm not an engineer, so I don't know, but I'm just like, hey, I know that it's too heavy, take this out, and he did, and we shot, I don't know how many animals we shot with those this year.
Tons.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We put those guns to work.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And the VX6s too. I mean,
Yep.
if you looked at mine, the last video we did, James was like, "Is this blood all over your scope?" I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, sorry, I got to." Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing. A lot of people mark their bow with blood. Like after you get a kill, you put a little. You do the same with your scope, so it's like a airplane where they have the kills.
We just do it incidentally when we're packing stuff out, like just blood on our stuff.
Oh, dude, it would be.
And never gets washed.
Yeah, I'd need like 8 scopes to put all the hash marks on it from this year. It was a busy year. It was a very busy year. Or actually, my PH from South Africa just stopped by right before we started this, and he, don't ever go with that guy because you'll get carried away and you'll need, like I said, the hash marks will stack up real fast.
Yeah. Well, that was a good little run through of the new Gen 2s, which we're super excited to hopefully be running this year. I know we just got our rifle set up. We're going to build another one. So
yeah, I got 2 more builds set up for each of the guys, so we'll do some short action builds this year. And
Well, you guys know a guy, so.
I know a guy.
We know a guy.
I know a guy. Randy Newberg, great guy.
I'm the last guy you'd want to call.
What about, so I know, Randy, you're based out of Montana, correct?
Yep.
And I know you guys have been fighting some uphill battles. And originally we met Randy through the initial conflict in Washington State because of our spring bear season.
Yep.
I know that there's a million things going on with a million states. I don't know if you've seen the newest with our commission and the newest bills.
Yeah.
I don't know how depressing we will want to get on this, but I think we should probably address it.
Oh, yeah. We need to. There's so for those of you who know, you know, but there's all kinds of problems going on in Washington right now.
Yeah.
We have the possibility of having our entire structure of how they manage wildlife to be completely redone. There's talks of overhauling it and giving the main responsibilities to the director of the Fish and Wildlife, which would be a government appointed person, and then with the oversight of state level. So legislatures basically would be overseeing some of the just controversial decisions that the director might make.
Right.
Which, as you know, politicians are not fully equipped to handle wildlife management.
Come on, if you get elected to a state legislature, you automatically have a PhD in wildlife management.
Yeah. I mean,
why people go to these programs at universities and spend 12 years getting a PhD when all you got to do is get elected to your legislature?
That's
and
true.
You're smarter
You
than
don't
those
need
guys.
it. You don't need all that fine education that you pay for if you just get into politics.
Yeah. Hell, I might run for office.
Just put that sarcasm emoji, have it
Right?
dash across the screen here. But
Yeah, so we know that would probably not be a good thing for Washington. The other way that they could go on this is they could have a restructuring of their commission, which would basically allocate the commission the open appointments to people that are supposed to be appointed. So like a commercial person that represents the interests of commercial fishermen,
Right.
a person who represents the interests of the tribal communities, person who represents hunters and anglers. And that's the way it's supposed to be, but that's not the way it's been.
Right.
And especially with this new appointee that we just got, as Governor Inslee was on his way out the door. Just more
Great
of the
guy,
same.
by the way.
Yeah.
Super great guy.
Yeah.
Randy, aren't you guys best friends? Didn't you guys just have like a Christmas dinner together?
I don't think Governor Inslee. I don't think I'm on his invite list. Anything unless he's gonna have some sort of ambush. I might get invited to that.
Yeah. But on his way out the door, he made Molly Linville was set for reappointment, and she didn't get reappointed, and she's which surprised me because she's more of a neutral. She's not exactly pro hunting. She sided with hunters when it came to like science-based stuff, which apparently he didn't like that.
Yeah.
But she was more of a ranching community, very level-headed, kind of neutral, doesn't hate hunting, doesn't necessarily isn't a big hunter or anything like that. So it was surprising that she didn't get reappointed, but he had someone in mind, which was this new lady who has direct affiliations with some anti-hunting organizations,
Right.
which seems like a conflict of interest if you're going to be specifically lethally removing animals, and that's your job is to manage numbers of that. if you're anti-hunting, that doesn't really fall into the category very well. But
yeah, being so interested in what's going on in Washington as I've been, because I view you guys as what happens here, it's coming to a state near you.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why I've, since the beginning, have been kind of raising the flag to the rest of the people who listen to my stuff is, hey, you need to pay attention in what's going on in Washington and California, because that's the playbook that they're going to use. And so you guys have a really interesting statute here that established your game and fish department and how it's going to be structured, who it's accountable to, and none of that is being followed.
Yeah.
That's the part where I'm trying to figure, where's the disconnect here? How does an elected person or elected people feel that, oh yeah, that's in our in our statutes and in our law, but we don't need to pay any attention to that.
Well, and that was part of the things that was in that report that it's really hard to pronounce, Ruckelshaws or Ruckelhaus, Ruckelhaus, whatever you want to, however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Was they basically went over how in dismay it is, and one of the things I found very interesting about that is how different the commissioners interpreted that perfectly phrased way of saying how they're supposed to run the commission.
Right.
I mean, they all interpreted it differently.
Right.
And it should be interpreted across the board the same way.
Right.
This is what your statute says. This is the way it should be executed.
Yeah. And usually that happens because your commission has its own legal counsel to say this is what the law says. So if your commission chair, and I've sat in on some of your meetings of your commission.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That if you want a definition of clown show in terms of most, you say we're going to use Robert's Rules of Order, and there's structure and there's protocol of how people are allowed to add agenda items or discuss things on the agenda. Those are some of the most, I'm just going to say, poorly run meetings. And I don't care who would be on that commission. If they were all hunters or non-hunters, anti-hunters, the way those meetings are run is an embarrassment to you guys.
Well, it has been for a while.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things going on there and a lot of stuff mentioned in that report. I hope it serves as a wake-up for your legislature to say, we can't have one of our agencies disregarding our statutes, not following their public trustee duties. Our appointment process has been completely outside the bounds of what your Washington statutes allow, and it's not following what the structure was that's set up. Like you said, you need one of a commercial fishing you guys have it stated geographically where they need to come from, also what industry, if you want to call it that, or stakeholder group they're supposed to represent. As someone who's a trustee and spent 30 years of my life advising trusts, your statute, I'm aware and familiar with the fiduciary duty laws, which is the laws that apply to trustees of just about every state, because I've been a trustee that has operated in pretty much every state. You guys have laws that say your trustees have to operate this way.
Right.
And unfortunately, they're not criminal code, so it's not like the county sheriff or the state police can go arrest them.
Right.
It's all civil code.
Well, and there's no accountability.
It would go to the civil side. So the only accountability comes through litigation.
Right.
So your only way to force a trustee to do what they're supposed to do is to sue them.
Yep.
And we in the hunting community suck at, we aren't lawyered up very well.
Speaking of, I'm glad you mentioned that, Randy.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, Bear Country did a big fundraiser for a group I'm pretty sure you're aware of, Sportsmen's Alliance.
Yep.
And we helped fund a lawsuit against Lorna Smith. We won. At the time, Bob Ferguson was our attorney general. He's like a child with a credit card, and so he thought that it would be a good idea to appeal the decision where we totally 100% unequivocally won this lawsuit just to waste Sportsmen's Alliance money, which I thought was probably not a very nice thing for him to do. We went back.
They invite the Supreme Court.
Yeah, so they invited me to go to the Supreme Court and watch the final, right? So I show up, and what a joke. What an absolute joke. So I watched Bob Ferguson's cronies argue over the meaning of words. It's like not to touch on anything too sensitive here on the BCO podcast, but it's like the what is a woman type question, and they would just argue over what a word meant, and I'm like, she did something wrong. She wasn't supposed to do it. There's repercussions, and then end of story, right? It's very simple. Like, I'm a very simple guy, right? You know, nail, hammer. I know how to do this. And so we won again, by the way. And so I've been working with Todd, Sportsmen's Alliance, and did you see the new lawsuit we just got pushed out there? So I had a bunch of really good ideas, by the way. But again, me not being the most intelligent person, they have some great attorneys, and they're like, Chris, poke, and put holes in all my stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. But luckily we have the lawsuit going forward, which is absolutely ridiculous that the state took over 500 days and gave them 0.01% of the records they requested. So I feel like it's a slam dunk. I'm sure they're going to argue over what is a record and what is a day and what does a minute mean. But I'm excited for them to be pushing forward, and we've unfortunately it's taken a long time because the wheels of justice move slow, but we've been working really, really hard, and we have a couple more lined up hopefully. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Well,
we're going to continue to push.
A lot of times people say, well, you just need to vote differently. You need to think about who you're voting for, no doubt about it. But you live in a state where you're never going to go and sway all those other voters to vote differently.
Washington is vote blue no matter who.
So it really comes down to then how do we use the legal system to force the people who are elected, who whatever side they come from, they have to follow the statutes. They have to follow trustee duties, because if the system is set up under the belief that everyone's going to follow the law, that's how our laws and our systems and administrative code is set up.
Right.
And if someone isn't going to do that, you have to either get rid of them, which it doesn't sound like Washington's going to vote these people out.
No.
Or you have to go to court and use the judiciary to say, folks, you have to follow the law.
Right.
So I know you just came. Would you just come from Oregon, or where'd you just come from?
Yeah, I was duck hunting down in Oregon.
Okay, so in Washington, when you say law, you go law.
Law, like air quotes?
Yeah, you got to use air quotes in Washington.
Really?
We don't really have laws here.
Really?
Unless you're a sportsman.
Then the law is fully applied.
And then, which I'm probably going to get arrested for that as soon as I walk out of here.
Well, you guys were playing jokes on me. Folks, before they turned on the mic, I'm talking about my knives I got with me, and they're like, well, you can't have knives in Washington. And that's believable to me because I see so much crazy stuff here. I'm like, looking at the sheriff around here, looking at Randy Newberg's going to be down in the pen here. That was a cruel joke. You guys had my blood pressure going there for
Randy,
a minute.
it's getting worse. So kind of it is tied into the whole hunting side of things. There's a new law being proposed in Washington State. Have you heard about the insurance type thing for firearms? Mm-hmm. So they want Washington wants a person to insure their firearms for $25,000 per firearm. There's 3 different options, right? Yeah. You have an insurance company do it, which there's no insurance. Like, what insurance company can do that?
But you can only have the insurance company do it if it's under 25 firearms. Is the way I understand.
I think it was 35, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally convoluted. But here's the kicker. Here's the best part of this. So the second option is, you're going to love this. Per firearm that you own, all you have to do, it's super easy. You just write a check or bring cash. It said cash, by the way. And give Washington State $25,000 directly to Washington State for them to hold per firearm. Right. So let's say
as your bond.
Yeah.
So you're self-insuring.
Yeah, you're
self-insuring it.
Yeah. So you could say, like, I don't know, Matt has, I don't know if the ATFs listen. He has 100 guns. So he's going to take $2.5 million cash out of his duffel bag that's right around the corner here and just give it to Washington State. It's and so. Can you imagine, like, number one, that's going to make people move out of the state. Number two, that's going to make people lie and become, like, I don't know.
Law-abiding criminals.
Yeah, law-abiding criminals. Mm-hmm. Or, the idea is to, like, I don't
deter
know.
people from owning firearms.
Yeah, but, like, what do we do? All the people that hunt, I hunt with a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And depending on what I'm hunting, I need different guns for different situations. So, now, do I take all my money to Idaho or Montana and move away? Or?
Well, that explains why Montana is getting so crowded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't blame.
We're sorry, Randy. It's Washington.
I don't blame Washington, Oregon, California people for moving to Montana or Idaho or Wyoming. But yeah, those are the things that are so problematic. Colorado's got an identical law in their legislature right now to what you guys have.
Oh no!
Really?
There's a model law that these groups are trying to get passed in every state, and they're very strategic, and they're very smart about how they go about this.
Oh, yeah.
So they look at the election results. They're like, Washington and Colorado, we can probably get this through through the legislative process. So
they'll start there.
You guys are up against that. That's going to end up being litigated under all of the Second Amendment issues in Montana. We have a right to hunt in Montana, which when it was passed, I was like, this is not that helpful because somebody could say, well, we open season for one day, you still have your right to hunt.
Right.
But talking to attorneys about these kind of things and what standing that then gives citizens.
Yeah.
Because now it's in our Constitution. That's different than a statute. That is saying we are giving and granting and protecting these rights to every citizen of Montana. Well, if the legislature starts passing stupid laws that violate that right granted to me under the Montana Constitution, my standing now is really supreme compared to if I didn't have that in my Constitution. So, unfortunately, a lot of your states where this stuff's coming from don't have that right to hunt. But you do have the right to keep and bear arms, which I don't know why people got to argue over that. I mean, that's pretty simple to me, but
that's their most favorite thing to argue about in this state.
It is.
I think there's 10 gun bills being pushed right now.
Yeah,
so,
as of right the second.
Yeah. And
in Washington,
for people who hunt, I often hear people say, "Well, I've got, a shotgun and a rifle. That's not that big a deal to me." Well, one, if you believe in the Second Amendment, it should be a big enough deal to you. If that's not convincing and compelling to you, and you're just into hunting, well, most of the funding through the Pittman-Robertson excise tax right now is coming from recreational shooters, gun owners who are not hunters.
Right.
70% of that funding that is the major source of funding for your state agency is coming from non-hunters.
Yeah.
And if we're going to infringe that and make it so much harder for people to shoot, to find places to shoot, to own their firearms, that permeates so many places that you should have like a hair on fire reaction to that. In my mind, if you're a hunter, even if you don't have as many firearms as we do. I was telling Matt last night, I'm on vault number 4, and my wife is like,
Good for you, Randy.
How many of these safes do we need?
I always tell my wife it's an investment.
Oh yeah, yeah. So what I did, because she was questioning me on that, I went and bought her own safe, a little safe for all of her personal stuff. So
there you go.
Now she's like, what? Yeah, I like the safe stuff.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
she's got to fill it up now.
But we for those of us where this is what we grew up with, this is our passion. It's what we do. It's part of our way of life. This is really hard to deal with.
Yeah,
because we're in the minority in a lot of these states. But I'm just trying to prepare people that our ways of doing it in the past, of thinking people are going to follow process and they're going to adhere to their statutes. That isn't going to work. We're going to have to lawyer up.
Yeah.
And so to see Sportsmen's Alliance do that, NSSF has been doing that in cases. Hunters and shooters better just get ready to do that. Yeah. Because that's really going to be our only recourse.
Well, it's coming to a head now. I mean, we were just talking about how it comes from not just from Washington, but right now it's a battleground, right? But it jumps from state to state. I mean, when we were on your podcast, we're saying we touched on, something, Colorado's kind of crazy. And then it was just months later they announced that they were going to make a run at some ballot box, initiative. And so it's coming to every state at some point.
Yep.
Like even the reddest state you can think of, at some point it's going to come to a head there too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, our Montana legislature's in session right now. We are in session for 90 days every 2 years. And everyone wishes it was for 2 days every 90 years, but, we're stuck with it right now. And Montana is as red as it gets. But we have some legislators who come up with, not on the firearm side, but on the hunting side, the public access side, the funding of conservation, the things that put more wildlife on the landscape. They've lost their mind. And so next week, I'm going to be in Helena 2 days.
Really?
Like I have nothing better to do.
Yeah.
Right.
To go and testify against really bad legislation. So, you know, no matter if your state has a split legislature where it's part red, part blue, or it's all red, you still need to be paying attention. Because as long as legislatures are in session, no one's property or person is safe.
Yep.
And
You got to keep.
unfortunately, you guys probably, I mean, the foot is on the throat.
Yeah.
Randy,
for you guys.
I've been dealing with this for how many years? I'm 24 years old. Look how old I look.
Oh, damn.
I'm pretty
Chris.
sure when we started Bear Country, he had mostly browns.
It
and
was
reds,
mostly
and now
brown,
He looks
yeah.
like Santa Claus. So
Yeah. I used to be a ginger. I don't know what happened.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a stress.
Well, I
of
wish
all
I
of it,
could tell you it gets better.
You know,
But that'd be a lie.
we have a conversation all the time about how it does become exhausting after a while when you're constantly just fighting all the time.
Right.
You know, and a lot of people are kind of, you know, they get burned out and then they kind of lose interest in it, and that's where they get you. You know.
No, that is one of their tactics, because when you went, I'm sure, Chris, you're talking about, you went to some of these hearings, you went to the Supreme Court thing. You were probably the only unpaid person there.
Yeah.
The other side, they throw tons of money at it for attorneys, for full-time employees, and every time we go there, you look around, it's a bunch of volunteers who have to take some paid time off.
Right.
That's right.
And again, these are institutional changes that we need to make in the hunting and shooting space if we're going to win. You know, sending some old gray-haired CPA up there on his part-time gig, he might raise a little hell and, you know, make a compelling case, but as quick as I leave, the paid people are still there in the ear of these legislators while I'm back home trying to,
That's
Right.
to run a
100%
business.
correct. Yep.
So those are things that are going to have to change also. And that fatigue thing is absolutely true. I being aware of that, there's a guy he's passed away. He's one of my conservation mentors. He said, you know, you can't just preach hope, or you can't just preach despair and gloom.
Right.
You have to give some examples of successes. So that's why I'm glad you guys brought up that you guys won those lawsuits.
Yeah.
You got to give people a little bit of inspiration that, you know, this isn't futile.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you want to use an example of where bad messaging, and however anyone feels about climate change and what their thoughts are on it, but have you ever heard anything positive in the messaging about climate change?
No.
It's all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
It's the end of time. We're all going to burn, you know, we may as well just climb in a microwave and put it on high for an hour.
I will say, Randy, not in Washington State. Did you know we have a carbon tax here?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we have a carbon tax. So we paid how many billions of dollars in?
Oh, ridiculous amount.
Yeah, so Jay Inslee in all his infinite wisdom said, since I'm a climate expert, I'm going to save the world with a tax. So we paid in billions of dollars. So I think it ends like Tuesday. I think climate change ends.
Yeah,
really?
that's when it's supposed to end because of the carbon tax.
Yeah, it was like $6 billion if we pay or something like that. I don't remember how many billions of dollars, but
you know, we have a lot of sarcasm on this.
No, but my point in that is, have you ever heard anything positive in the messaging around
No. We're all going to die, Randy.
issues? So
Yeah.
if they wanted to be effective in that messaging, you can't just put out every press release, every lawsuit, everything that we're dying, you know.
Yeah.
Don't bother having any kids. They're all going to die anyhow. You know, it's like you couldn't screw up messaging worse than they have. So I don't want to follow that same path, is my point. I don't want to follow that path in how I message to hunters and shooters. So I go out and I purposefully look for where are the victories. That's why I thought the ballot initiative in Colorado that got beat in November.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That's a victory. That's what we can do if we put our money and our effort and we all come together as one voice those are the places that I want people to look to. All right, how do we replicate that? How do we replicate that in Washington? How do we find ways to do that? Because if we're just going to talk about, you know what, hell with it, may as well just give it up.
Right.
You're all going to be packing your bags to Montana and Idaho and Wyoming.
And then guys like you are going to be cursing, damn the Washington.
I know. Right. Yeah, I should have went on that Bear Country Outdoors podcast and talked about how, you know, if you eat an elk from Montana, you're going to end up with some sort of liver flukes or something. You know, you get the hooboo, itch, pox, and canker or something. And it's,
I will say that we did have some positive stuff happen with all of the doom and gloom here. So obviously, like I said, every day we're fighting. Every day it's a new bill they're trying to push. And the Conservation Coalition of Washington had teamed up with us, and then Charles from Howl and Robbie from Blood Origins. And we kind of, I had spoke to Charles about this, and I said, you know, it's amazing the influence it, you know, like he has and Robbie has and all these different you have and Leupold and it, if we all paddled the same way, holy shit, we could do some work, you know.
Yeah, that's what Colorado showed us.
Yeah,
it's exactly what Colorado showed.
And there's so many of us that literally, if everyone, I mean, because everyone's paddling, but in their own direction. So if we can just kind of unite,
right,
one good swift paddle. You know, and like
quit bickering about
holy crap,
stuff.
we make up a lot of progress. You know,
yeah.
So
I mean, we see it all the time, right? The muzzleloader guys are getting picked on by the archers, who are getting picked on by the rifle hunters, and then within the archery community, well, those damn guys shooting compounds, you know, they're the end. If you don't shoot a stick bow, and then in the hunting space, you know, if you have more than a 4-power scope on your rifle, you're unethical. I mean, the amount of energy that we waste fighting with each other is insane.
It's insane.
And when you look at it, does it move the needle one iota? It doesn't. It's not one step forward, 2 back. It's a half a step forward and 20 yards back.
Right.
And I refuse to engage in those kind of things about, you know, weapon preferences or hunting styles. If you're out hunting or you're out shooting, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
You know, you're following the law and you're participating, having fun. You've cleared every one of my hurdles.
Right.
Speaking of a win, I'd like to touch on real quick. Washington State, we can now put a 0 magnification optic electronic red dot on our muzzle loaders.
Oh, right.
So it's brand new, which is great. So the reason I bring this up is because Randy, me being the ripe old age of 19 that I am, the eyes aren't quite there in low light conditions to see that front sight, back sight picture, right? Yeah. So I bought a new muzzle loader. I was really excited. And then they just came out with this. So Leupold has an optic called an RDS, right?
Oh, I can grab it.
That would be great. So these are literally like hen's teeth right now, trying to get.
Yeah, good luck getting one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I luckily had one that I had on an AR that I took off and put on my muzzleloader this year. Yeah.
So they have one with a turret, so you can dial your dope on a muzzleloader. How cool is that? You know, like it. I feel like you would have to be very in tune with your, like you're saying, with your level. Like you should probably put a level on your muzzleloader because it doesn't have a physical reticle in there. But I mean, there's so many times where I've seen like critters at 250 or maybe 300, you know, and with the muzzleloader on irons, like no,
I ain't shooting at 300.
no way, right?
Yeah.
But the new muzzleloaders and the technology and everything else, like, I mean, 300 yards is nothing for a new muzzleloader, you know, and the new pellets. And
that new Gunworks one, like I had it out to like 600 yards.
Holy moly!
Like it's insane.
You're kidding me?
No. Yeah. Like some of these new muzzleloaders are just crazy. Yeah. And like it's getting to the point where we're getting close to it's basically a rifle.
So, right.
But Oregon, like we're behind you guys. Like we can't do anything. Our muzzleloaders have to be old school muzzleloaders. You can't have like a lot of the new technologies. You can't have sights on it. So our muzzleload season is dead in Oregon. Like nobody hunts it. Nobody puts in for draws on it.
Wow.
Because it's so short and the restrictions are so tight that it's just not worth it.
Right.
So.
So there's a win.
There's a win for Washington.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, you, at the ripe old age of 19 and your vision failing you, wait till you got a 6 in front of your age. I got to go. You get these floaters, and when you're out duck hunting like I was last week, these floaters come through your eye, and you're like, you pay attention because you think some ducks are coming in.
Right.
Then you blink, and it's like, oh, just another floater. So, yeah, if you're shooting at 100 yards with open sights, you're not in your 60s.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, if you got that sight in focus, you can't the end of the barrel's almost blurry, let alone something out there 100 yards.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, well, just wait. Again, Chris, I wish I could tell you it gets better.
Yeah. My wife said that the more she beats me amongst like the neck up, that it's going to help. And it's been 20 years and it hasn't helped yet. So,
yeah, well, the calluses are probably preventing any further injury. But anyhow, back to that. I hope we look at things like Colorado, look at some of the lawsuits you guys have succeeded on here. And nothing's going to change overnight. It's going to take work.
yeah.
And but it's going to take people with platforms. It's going to take our industry leaders. And it's going to take those few advocates we have within the elected body to put up the fight.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
I'm not going home. I'm going down with the ship, man.
Yeah, so are we.
I'm going down swinging.
We're running the Titanic here, and we're driving it right into the bottom of the ocean if we have to.
I already told Bob Ferguson I packed a lunch. I'm here to stay. So,
No doubt. Yeah, damn the torpedoes. Here we come.
Yep, that's right.
So,
And people forget about stuff too. Like Oregon, we had 114, which was a huge deal, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's dead. Like they're still fighting in a court. 114 can come back, and like people forget and they stop paying attention, and then they slide it through.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you have to do all these stupid things. Like you got to pay attention and keep on it, and make sure you're up to date on the court cases and following along with them. So if stuff changes, you're still there to fight.
yeah.
Yep.
And then you get groups like Howl. Howl, I don't know if those guys understand how much of a difference they've made. Anyone who doesn't subscribe to their email blast should.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it
agree.
doesn't cost you anything. But they have come on the scene and really brought some of these things we're talking about of how the other side plays the game.
Right.
They're starting to do that same thing. So anyone listening, what is it, howl.org?
Yeah, howl.org.
Yeah. Go and sign up because they're not just paying attention on national level. They're involved helping guys like you in other states. Robbie with his Blood Origin podcast is taking on tons of these things. So I think we are going to see maybe an autopsy of the Colorado experience and say what worked.
Yeah.
And we're already seeing that. Like the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation just recently helped set up a 501c4 organization, which is C4 can play the bloody knuckle game of politics.
Right.
Whereas the C3 groups, which we've always relied on as hunters for our, wildlife federations and our critter groups and conservation groups, they're 501c3s. That's just a section of the tax code. And if you say you're a 501c3, you make a trade-off. You say, anyone who donates money to me, it's going to be tax deductible to them, but I can't play in the game of politics, really. A 501c4, you make the opposite trade-off of say, look, if you make a donation to me, it's not deductible, but I'm going to go to that state legislature and I'm going to be a pain in someone's ass.
Right.
Yeah.
We need more 501c4s.
Yeah, we do. 100%.
And so I think part of the experience we saw success in Colorado, you're going to see more of those 501c4 groups pop up.
And I'm a big fan of that. I think James and I have preached this constantly on our podcast and just in person. Is we support those who support us, right? There's a reason that we push Sportsmen's Alliance. There's a reason we push Howl. There's a reason we push Blood Origins. Ask James. I'm not a spreadsheet guy, but I have a spreadsheet of my subscriptions and my life memberships, and everyone that commits to the cause gets my money.
Yeah.
And people, oh, Chris, I don't have any money. Like, everyone has money. You just you piss it away. Poor management,
Yeah.
Like, I'm that guy. But at the same time, like, it takes money to fund lawsuits. It takes money to pay people to fight back, and you know, if I got to make sure that I have 3 jobs so I can pay Social Security, so Randy can be retired and run around and have fun.
That's right.
So
I got a ways to go. I got 7 years to go, Chris. So please keep paying into that.
I'm paying in, but I'll tell you what. Charles gets my money, and Robbie gets my money, and a bunch of these good organizations, Sportsmen's Alliance and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, they all get my money, and I can't wait to give that new section of Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation some more of my money, because they're out there fighting for us. So we need that.
I just hope people think about that. You know, when you're rattling off all those things. The other side's pay to have a lobbyist in every state legislature.
Yep.
Very few of our critter groups, one, because they're a 501c3, they can't really go do it. And if they do kind of thread the needle of what they are allowed to do, they really can't have a full-time lobbyist in your Washington legislature or my Montana legislature. So we're not in the ear of these elected people all the time.
Right.
And so our story's never getting told.
Right.
So it's just, you know, the other side's kind of laid out the roadmap how to do it. We just got to decide our aversion to attorneys, and I know you probably got some attorneys in your audience, so
there's a handful.
I better not be too harsh on the legal profession.
Dude, there's nothing you can say, Randy, that this guy hasn't completely dropped a bomb on.
So,
okay.
I mean,
It's very true.
Inherently, history has shown that the hunting and shooting community is less litigious than the other
yes,
side.
100%.
And we'd always hope we didn't need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my call to action is you better start readjusting that mindset, because that's where this path is headed.
Yeah.
And we want to have the best attorneys we can, because we're there to win.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
you don't go and fight and battle these things just to be present.
No.
You go there to win.
That's right.
We're winners, Randy.
Yeah.
Winners win.
So.
And we win, buddy.
Or if you're in Washington, you fight really hard and sometimes you lose. But, but we're going to continue to fight.
So.
Well, James and I, when we laid out this podcast, we're like, okay, we got to hit on a couple key topics. And then we knew we were going to have you on and Matt on. And it can't be all doom and gloom. And when you talk about, like, lawsuits and politics, people just kind of So who should we'll start with Randy, because he's probably got one in his pocket.
What?
You guys are going to tell us one of your best / funniest hunting stories, because I vomit my hunting stories all the time, and people are sick of them. So we're going to let you tell some.
Best or funny?
Yeah. Like, tell us, like, it could be.
It's funny now, but it wasn't at the time. When the camera guy jumps on we do this epic Alaska bear hunt. And a poor guy, he fell in a creek, so the big cameras broke.
Oh, no.
First morning.
Oh, boy.
So, I mean, these are expensive to film, because you got to fly a film crew in there on a beaver, and film permits are a couple $1,000. And so we're there, and so we've started using these iPhone 16s a lot for filming, especially when it's raining, because they're waterproof, or mostly waterproof, and that's where this story goes. So he's a great guy, and he's always wanting to volunteer to do whatever. Well, he films the rest of his stuff on an iPhone. So the plane comes to get us. We're loading up the plane, and he's like, "I'll push us off." All right. So pilot's getting the beaver fired up, and he puts his cell phone with all of this footage right here in this top pocket of his waders. And when he climbs onto the pontoon of the plane, he bends down.
Oh, no.
Bloop, down into the deep Pacific. And I'm sitting in the back, because he's going to climb in next to the pilot, and the pilot's watching him, and the pilot says, "Oh, shit." And I'm thinking the plane broke, or, you know, the fuselage is on fire back behind me or something. And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "That's not good." And I don't know what's went on yet.
Yeah.
And the guy's not climbing into the plane. I'm like, "We got to get going." Well, I eventually found out that the camera with a ton of the footage, or the phone,
Oh no.
Yeah, so it wasn't funny at the time, but
there's no way to get it back. It's gone.
Well, it was like 5 feet deep there at that time, and so we just stayed there and we're trying to look down, see if we can see anything. And the tide's starting to come back in because they come to get you at a low tide because if they get you at an outgoing tide, they could end up high and dry while you're loading the plane.
Right.
So the tide's coming in, it's getting deeper and deeper. It's like, we're screwed. And in Southeast Alaska, some of these places have like 15 to 20-foot tides. So fly back into town, Hunt's over. Pilot calls me that night. He's like, this just sucks, man. I want to see if those cell phones, those iPhones, are as waterproof as they say they are.
Yeah.
If you'll pay for my fuel, I'll fly you guys out there at low tide tomorrow. I got magnets. I got metal detectors. We're going to find that thing. So he flew us back out there at low tide the next morning, and we spent the hour and a half before low tide, bottom low tide, and the hour and a half after looking for that thing. Never did find it.
Oh, you're kidding me.
So if people wonder why that episode is somewhat incomplete.
Okay. That would explain it.
Yeah, it's down there in Davy Jones' locker somewhere down in the deep blue yonder.
What year was this?
That was just
This was just recently?
Yeah, it was 2024.
Does the cameraman still work for you?
Yeah.
What's his name?
I'm not going to rat. There's a lot of lessons learned there. We have these protocols that we always bring in extra, we call it the oh shit kit. Like if something really goes bad, we got to spare everything.
Yeah.
So when the camera broke the first morning when he tipped in the drink, I'm like, well, let's head back to camp and get the one out of the oh shit kit. And everyone's silent. I'm like, what? The oh shit kit is back on the mainland.
Oh, no.
They didn't fly it out on the Beaver. So, yeah, some hunts, it becomes like the checklist of, we have these protocols, we have this, and these are checklists. We have this.
Yeah.
Why is this? So, it's funny now.
Yeah.
But at the time, my growing up in a little logging town and in a logging family, my profanity, my skill at profanity came back.
Oh, nice.
No one talked to me for about a day. We can't even talk to this guy. He's about ready to go.
Well, it's like you're
orbit.
in the middle of nowhere. Like there's no other option.
Nope. So anyhow, if someone finds an iPhone on the bottom of the ocean in Alaska,
call Randy Newberg.
Contact at randynewberg.com.
Get it back with some barnacles growing on it.
Yeah.
It still works.
Yeah.
We've had moments like that.
We have checklists now too, Randy, because we've had some faux pas where it's been quite embarrassing.
Oh,
yeah. Entire podcast scrapped.
Multiple times.
Oh, really?
Why do you think I keep looking up? Is that button red? Yep, that button's red.
Yeah, or you double punch that button.
Yeah.
And so you hit it, and you see the red, and you walk away, and you didn't realize your finger just tapped it a second time and turned it off. Yeah.
Lots of times on footage like that, especially self-filming, dude, everything can go wrong self-filming. You know this, Randy. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. Any bad footage we had was me self-filming. Guarantee you. But
it's just the way it is. That's what it's tough. It's tough filming hunts. It's an extra level of things that can go wrong, an extra level of stress, just trying to get the right shots and stuff. And sometimes we're not the best about getting the shots all the time. Yeah. Sometimes we just say screw it, and we're just gonna go hunt.
Well, that's why I have really talented camera guys. I'm like, you got one job. You have one job.
We tell our cameraman the same thing.
We do.
The same thing.
They still don't get it half the time. But
yeah, 28 days in Montana is what I spent this year, and I brought the camera, and it stayed in my truck the whole time. I didn't pull it out one time. And Randy cordwood, I stacked them up. Yeah. Multiple elk.
You need to use these. These because this you already have it with you. Right?
Yeah.
You're navigating on your map and everything. And we've found ways where this is as good. It's better than a GoPro by a mile.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's weatherproof for the most part.
Right.
And now with the phone adapters for digiscoping, you can get your kill shot. So I walk around with two of these. One for the close-ups, and we got audio that fits in there.
Oh, the microphones for those are so amazing to have.
Yeah. So we've solved that riddle in a big way, because I used to walk around or drive around with the old shit, the spare camera kit in my truck, and it just collected dust. I'm not going to carry that 14-pound thing around out there. I don't even know how to use it half the time.
Right.
So I'll call the office. Where's the auto settings on this? Because they've got everything. They're. And hey, this lens doesn't look like it fits. Well, no, you brought the wrong lenses for the wrong camera.
Yeah.
So it's like, they're so easy an accountant can do it.
Randy Newberg pro tip.
Yeah. Pro tip: carry your cell phone with you.
All right,
Get
Matt.
footage that way.
Bar set, buddy.
Mine's not going to be that good, but we were out elk hunting on the coast, and we're up glassing, and we're with it was when I back in my tech service days. So it was Chris Merrickey and I. He's our head of international military sales now, so I don't mind calling him out. But and then another guy, I won't call him out. We're glassing, and I see a coyote. Anytime you see a coyote, like, I'm shooting it. I don't care what's going
100%.
on. And he was like, I've never killed a coyote. I'm like, well, get down, get ready. It's like 200 yards, and he's taking forever to get ready to shoot this thing. I'm like, you have like 2 seconds, and I'm shooting this coyote. Like, I'm already down set. Finally gets down, shoots it, 200 yards. Jumps up. I'm a sharpshooter. I'm like, it's a 200-yard shot. So every time he calls, that's what pops up on my phone.
Sharpshooter?
Sharpshooter. There you go. That's awesome.
We know some of those guys.
We're big predator hunters, as you probably know. We never pass up an opportunity on a coyote, bobcat.
Ever. Nope.
I've blown so many deer and elk hunts shooting coyotes or bobcats or.
Oh yeah.
We have this strict rule where it's like, if we got a chance and we got a tag, or the season's open, we're doing it. You don't get that many opportunities at predators, and when you do, just do it.
Well, I think
do your part.
Craziest thing that happened to me, I was archery hunting in Eastern Oregon, and I'm sitting in tall grass, like kind of where a farm field hopped into a canyon. Usually deer cross right there, and this coyote came up like 5 yards to me. Like, I just turned with my bow and just shot him right there.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, I've never seen a coyote do that.
5 yards?
Yeah.
Wow, I've never seen a coyote that close.
Yeah, I had no idea. Like, he knew something was there and was just curious. And I'm like, I've never seen a coyote that curious.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you smoked him with your bow?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, just domed him, looking right at me.
That's pretty good. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
we had
a great season, way better than we deserved.
Yeah.
But that just tells me that 2025 is going to be in the crapper. We're going to work our butts off and not get anything. It was like wherever we showed up, nice animals would just stand there like, right here, shoot me right here. I want to be on video.
That's awesome.
It's like, it never is this good. It was the best season we've ever had by a mile.
Really?
Yeah. And so.
We had a stellar season as well. Chris obviously did a lot of work in Africa, like a lot of work in Africa. Hippo, crocodile, and a bunch of other animals. And we did Idaho. We had Idaho whitetail tags. We both shot really nice whitetails, like within 24 hours.
Wow.
I mean,
yeah, it was nice.
It was crazy. Did really good in Montana. Shot some, both tagged out on elk in Montana and deer in Montana. And we hunted. I did good in Washington. We killed a pile of bears.
Yeah.
So it was one of the best seasons we've ever had as well.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm like, oh man, next year might not be that great. It'll probably be a little bit tougher.
Well, I can't believe Bear Country Outdoors would have me on their podcast after they see the fumble of this same Alaska bear hunt. Jace, one of my camera guys, I'm like, we're applying together, so we had 2 tags. Because when you're going to invest all that, it's good to at least have 2 tags. Well, the first day we see all these bears, and Jay's like, I'm shooting one of those. And he built a rifle to shoot the NRL series last summer.
Nice.
And so he took that with, and he just smoked that thing. And unfortunately, though, the footage looks really far away because it's out of one of these phones.
Yeah.
Oh.
Actually, we were going in on that stock when the other guy fell into this little creek and broke the camera.
Oh.
So in the middle of our stock, he's like, hold on. Because I saw him flopping around back there, like when you skid a salmon up and it's in like 6 inches of water.
Right.
That's what he's doing back there. I'm like, what the hell are you doing back there? We're trying to kill this bear out here. Yeah. So we got to reshuffle everything, dig out new audio. They can't get it working. And Jace, who's ready to shoot, is the most senior camera guy. He's trying to MacGyver everything. Well, anyhow, we go back. A bear ate my raft. So
Oh, no.
we brought alpaca rafts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so Jay shoots his bear. We're all excited. We hike back to where we tied off the rafts at high tide, and my raft is flat. And there's
No
bear
kidding.
tracks everywhere. He took a dump right there. I mean, this is a lot of adventure, but here's why I can't believe you guys would have me on the podcast. On day 3 or 4, it starts like it does in Alaska, raining like crazy. And I've been waiting for this one really big bear. He doesn't have any brown on his nose. The black goes all the way out to the end of his nose. And you could just tell he's got a great big melon. He can hardly carry that thing and get such a big head. Finally, he comes out after us sitting there waiting for a few days. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And it's pelting rain. And we sneak up. He's feeding down in this little low tidal creek, so I can just see the hump on his back. So we're getting closer and closer and closer, and pretty soon I'm like, we are really close, even in this rain. This looks really close. And our ranger, we're at 67 yards.
Holy moly.
And all I can see is his back. So I lay down, and I'm thinking, well, he's going to feed around this little bend, and I'm going to drill him.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that, and I don't know what happens. All of a sudden, he just jumps up, and he takes off running. Well, now I get up out of my shooting position, and I think he's going to run to the trees, so I'm kind of half-assing it.
Yeah.
And he stops. And now this is like amateur hour.
Oh, yeah.
So I had ranged the edge of those trees at 110 yards, and
Yeah.
he stops there, and he's taking a poop.
Oh, my gosh.
And rather than lay back down, I try to do it on my pack. Well, I'd shortened my pack, and so I'm squatted. I could have offhanded this thing at 110 yards.
Yeah.
I've shot plenty of animals at that range offhand. So I'm trying to squat down on my pack, and my whole field of view, my everything, my eye relief is screwed up. I don't have my cheek on the rifle. And I hear one of them say, I think he's going to run. I'm like, I know he's going to run.
Yeah.
And I pull the trigger, and he jumps up, and I'm like, man, that felt low. Well, if there's one good thing about having these iPhones and putting them on a spotting scope adapter, after we followed 80 bits of blood for a couple hours and then the rain washed it all away, we were like, you could see I shot. I mean, windage was perfect, but I shot right. I mean, I must have just clipped him barely in the basket.
Bears are tough.
That was like, I could have made that shot with my offhand left eye, offhanded. 99 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
And I screwed it up. So why you guys would let some sympathetic bear hunter like that on your podcast is beyond me. But
Well, we've had plenty of those moments ourselves.
I was going to say, I know a very specific moment that it wasn't me, but I'm not going to say anything.
I mean,
because I know a guy who's killed more bears than anyone I've ever met do the same exact thing, Randy,
Really?
on a giant bear. Yeah. So I'm not gonna call him out. I'm not gonna say that he's sitting next to me. But it happens to the best of us, to the very best of us, Randy.
Wow. That I'll go to my grave looking at that bear standing there kind of quartering away, looking back like, what did I smell or see or whatever. Yeah. And me deciding somehow I needed a rest.
Yeah.
A half-ass, so you're trying to squat down on this little pack.
Yeah.
I probably had my scope canted at 90 degrees. Who knows? Anyhow, you look at the wide shot because the other guy was doing it this way. I have never put myself in a shooting position that was as uncomfortable and screwed up as that. And I did it on purpose, evidently.
Yeah. Been there, done that, Randy.
God.
And it happens like those are the ones that haunt you, though. It's not necessarily the fact that you messed it up.
Yeah.
It's the situation leading to it, right? Like knowing better and then going, what the hell was I doing?
Yeah.
Why did I do that?
Right. Oh, exactly.
I know that feeling.
So, but it does help to make some stupid mistakes. In Wyoming, had a leftover whitetail tag, and a buck jumps out of the brush, runs out there 120 yards, stands there looking right at me. I'm like, I'm not making that mistake in
Yeah.
Alaska.
Yep.
Bad day for you, pal.
Yep.
So
It does. You
Yeah.
you pick up little things even after doing it forever. If you're not learning, then you're not doing it right anyway.
The folks at MDT got a hold of me and said, Randy, it looks like you could have used a better bipod on that, huh?
Yeah.
So when that whitetail ran out there, I had that double pull, and I would have had to try to miss that shot.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I was thankful that Paige and Matt at MDT had some sympathy for me. I must have beat myself up bad enough that they're like, how about we send this guy a bipod? So anyhow, but
We're always learning.
Yeah.
It was one of those seasons.
Well, we've been going a while. I think we're probably an hour and a half in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we better get out of here before I think I got it.
You got to go teach somebody something.
Well, no, I don't got to teach anyone anything. I think police are looking for me because they heard I got a knife over here. You guys called the troops and haven't been in jail in Mexico
Right.
one time. I'm always kind of on the lookout.
There's a hot tip over here, a guy with a knife.
Well, look, yesterday when I did the seminar, a police officer came up, and I'll recognize him. I'm be like, hey, pal, just what do I got to do to be on your good side?
Right.
Around here? I got a knife. I'm just going to fess up. And he'll probably be like, well, so you got a knife.
It's okay. I think probably 9 out of 10 people have a knife here.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be all right.
Well, Randy, we appreciate your time. We appreciate
you guys.
Leupold having us in the booth here.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Definitely check out Randy on the old Fresh Tracks.
Yeah.
RandyNewberg.com, obviously Leupold.com, all the new Gen 2 products. We're really excited to run them. Again, we know you guys are busy men. We appreciate your time and everything you do, and look forward to seeing you guys in the mountain.
Thanks for what you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
Keep at it.
Yeah, thank
All
you
right.
guys.
With that being said, everybody, we'll see you next time. Stay humble and hunt hard.